It has been several years since the creation of mechanical augmentations, and already many factions are attempting to exploit it. Many thousands of people live in the fear of it, and many companies and firms are making billions off of it. But as the world shifts from using the technology for great purposes to turning it into yet another weapon of war, a massive technological leap is inbound. One that will shake the very foundations of the Earth. One that will change humanity forever. One that will start a human revolution. The year is 2027. Humanity stands on the brink of a revolution. Since the invention of mechanical augmentations, mankind has been able to develop its own evolution, but there has always been a price to pay. Since the bond between flesh and machine has never been a strong one, those who have become augmented are dependent upon a chemical that will allow this bond to occur. Neuropozyne allows this to happen, but is very expensive to produce, poses many health risks to the user, and is in limited supply, with other alternative drugs such as rhizine being classed as unstable. If mechanical augmentation technology is to become freely available to everyone, then these issues need to be resolved immediately. And, ironically enough, it would not be Hugh Darrow or the Illuminati who would resolve this issue. It is thanks to the endeavours of Dr. Megan Reed of Sarif Industries that a possible solution was discovered, but her valuable research, along with the company's assets, needed to be protected, and so David Sarif began to look into the problem of security. The possibility of taking the easy option and hiring Bell Tower, Dynacorp or even Sharp Edge operatives to act as Sarif Industries' security staff, as was the suggestion of Francis Pritchard, was not the main option that David Sarif wanted to take. The fact was that, despite their impeccable record, Bell Tower could not be totally trusted, being open to the highest bidder made them unreliable. Sarif instead wanted to recruit people that he could count on, and thus Sarif began a vigorous recruitment campaign. In the process, he would hire many people from different backgrounds to act as a security force for Sarif Industries. But with all of the new staff coming in, David knew that he needed someone to act as head of this security force. But this person needed to stand out from all the others. He needed someone from a background of security experience, but the problem was finding such a man. As fate would have it, the answer to this problem again came from Dr. Megan Reed. Remembering her one-time love interest, Megan recommended ex-SWAT member Adam Jensen for the role. After looking into Jensen's background, Sarif decided that Adam was the man for the job. Jensen was quickly taken on and introduced to his new colleagues, including Francis Pritchard, a sarcastic and demeaning computer hacker, and a man who Jensen would later develop a sibling-like rivalry with, Farida Malik, his pilot for missions abroad, as well as David Sarif himself. Jensen's hiring was well timed, as Dr. Reed had completed her vital research and was about to go public at the National Board of Science with this groundbreaking and still secretive revelation. But unfortunately, things would take a turn for the worst. On the day when Dr. Reed was to make her announcement to the public, as the rioting over anti-augmentation intensified, an unknown strike team attacked Sarif Industries' headquarters in Detroit, killing a number of Sarif personnel and sweeping aside the company's security forces. Adam Jensen pursues the attackers, but after coming face to face with Jaron Namir, the leader of the group known as the Tyrants, Jensen is brutally beaten and left for dead, whilst Megan Reed, along with a number of key Sarif scientists, are taken hostage and presumed dead. This attack was seen as a national tragedy amongst some, and as a justified purification by others, and no one would have known that it was the Tyrants who had carried out this attack. After the attack, David Sarif waded through the wreckage of what was his castle of Sarif Industries. Finding Jensen at death's door, he opted to save the man's life through the use of the technology that he was familiar with. Before the attack on Sarif Industries, Adam Jensen was not mechanically augmented in any way. After the attack, however, this was an entirely different story. Sarif puts Jensen through an intensive period of heavy augmentation surgery in order to save his life. As a number of Jensen's organs were failing, a large percentage of his body mass needed to be replaced with mechanical parts. By the end of it all, Adam Jensen walked away alive and well from the operating table, but was more machine than man, something of which he would come to resent over the following months. But whilst Jensen remained on sick leave for several months, other players were making their move. See, unbeknown to anyone else, it was the Illuminati who had ordered the attack on Sarif Industries. Although it was the tyrants who carried out the attack, it was in fact the Illuminati who had given the green light, much to the delight of Zhao Yanru. As Piker's TV leaked video footage of the attack onto the news, the people of the world noticed that those who had carried out the attack were augmented, and this spurred several groups into action. Although it's nothing new by this point, Humanity Front continued to stage many protests all across the world. However, due to the area containing a concentration of many different groups and factions, it is understandable why Humanity Front's voice fell short in Detroit at the start of this new period. Their cries of disgust would be drowned out by more violent acts committed by local gangs alongside Purity First members. However, as we have already seen, Humanity Front's strength comes from their political achievements, and thus the leader of this group, William Taggart, began to make contact with Sarif as a show of sympathy for his ideological enemy, as well as taking the opportunity to convince Sarif to cooperate with him in securing UN-sanctioned augmentation regulations. Other organisations, however, took a different approach. In the months that followed the appalling attack on Sarif Industries, Purity First became more and more active, installing hatred and fear into the local community. Seeing what happened at Sarif Industries as just another example of the dangers of using augmentations, Zeke Sanders began to plan an attack of his own. Ironically enough, the target this time would once again be Sarif Industries. As Sarif Industries was one of the leading developers of the new technology, it only made sense that any anti-augmentation attack would be made against them. This would accumulate into an all-out assault on a Sarif-owned industrial plant in Milwaukee. The security staff was swept aside, and many scientists working on the Typhoon explosion system were held hostage within the plant. Realising the urgency of the situation, and knowing full well that he was short of security staff, David Sarif recalled Adam Jensen out of sick leave early to sort out this issue. By utilising his new augmentations, Jensen is able to infiltrate the facility, free the hostages and secure the site, but not before running into an agent who is working with Purity First, hacking sensitive data from Sarif's network. Jensen is confused, however, when it becomes apparent that the hacker is being controlled from an outside source. What is most striking is that the hacker is augmented, something of which does not belong within Purity First. Before any more information can be retrieved from the hacker, he reaches for a gun, blowing his brains out, though in a way that comes across as if his actions were being controlled by someone else. Stunned by what has happened, Jensen determines to investigate the matter at a later date, but not until Sanders is dealt with. Surrounded and in an act of desperation, Zeke takes one of the Sarif scientists as a human shield. Jensen is able to defuse the situation by informing him about the hacker, who Zeke is shocked to learn about, and in a friendly gesture, Jensen allows Sanders to escape before being captured. This decision would be criticised by Sarif during the mission debrief. However, it would prove to be the right choice in hindsight, with the rewards of vital information. Despite the mission being a success, and Jensen back at work, Sarif comes up with troubling news. According to the police report filed about the incident, at no point was an augmented hacker mentioned. This leads Sarif to believe that a police cover-up is taking place, and thus Jensen is sent to the local police precinct to investigate further. As Jensen delves deeper into the mission, he discovers a number of issues. Firstly, by retrieving the hacker's neural hub from the morgue, he is able to learn, thanks to the hard work of Francis Pritchard, that the hacker was indeed being controlled by someone else. He also discovers that the cover-up was sanctioned by the government and was okayed by someone called Joseph Mandalay, a man of significance in the following decades to come. Whilst Jensen continues to investigate, Pritchard realises that a backdoor communication route within Sarif security protocols was left undefended. This would mean that if anyone outside knew about this communications link, then they could easily gain access to Sarif's network, learning everything there is to know about the company. It occurs to both Pritchard and Jensen that the tyrants could have used this, and that this poses a problem for the company, even more so if Sarif knows about it. Well, as it turns out, he did. This backdoor passage was originally Sarif's idea as a means of gathering classified information on both outside sources as well as assets within the company, such as Adam Jensen's history. Although this issue was eventually solved with the communications access being shut down, it does leave both Jensen and Pritchard wary of Sarif's surveillance methods. Following this, Pritchard tracks down the hacker's control signal to an abandoned factory. It is here that Jensen stumbles across the same people that had turned him into what he is now, the Tyrants. Whilst remaining undetected, Jensen gains access to the facility and follows the Tyrants down to the underground levels. It is here that he learns that he is actually in a FEMA-controlled base, of whom Manderley appears to be working with. After continuing his search, Jensen comes face to face with one of the Tyrant's own soldiers known as Barrett, and the two are thrown into a vicious fight. As Adam comes out of the fight victorious, he demands to know why FEMA ordered the attack on Sarif Industries. In an almost mocking way, Barrett replies,
FEMA? You think FEMA gives a rat's ass about some rinky-dink biotech corporation's company secrets? You got worse enemies than FEMA.
He gives Jensen an address to the Hengsha Islands in China, along with the leaving present of a bunch of active frag grenades, of which Jensen manages to narrowly escape from. It is at this point that Jensen begins to plan his trip to Hengsha. However, certain issues arise. As Sarif's niece is taken hostage by an augmented cartel faction, Jensen is sent to the rescue. Upon returning, the situation in Detroit takes a turn for the worst. As William Taggart delivers a speech at a Humanity Front rally, an assassin enters the crowd and activates his Typhoon system, killing many protesters. It would soon become apparent to Jensen that this assassin is in fact one of his former SWAT members, who had suffered terrible injuries during one of their previous missions. Now teamed up with an agent from Panchaea Resolutions called Katrina Sutherland, the two attempt to track down the assassin known as Quincy Durant. After several attacks on Durant's part, Jensen manages to track down the assassin to the Battersea Power Station in London, where he finds Sutherland, who by now he has developed feelings for, being held trapped with motion-sensitive explosives strapped to her chest. In a battle of morals, Durant forces Jensen to make the choice of either letting Katrina die or killing himself. But as Jensen opts to take the latter option, Sutherland breaks free from her bonds, saving Adam just in the nick of time, but at the cost of her own life. And with yet another woman close to his heart lost to him, Jensen makes sure that Durant is finished before returning to Sarif headquarters. After returning to David Sarif, who by now had made up his mind about what Barrett had said back in the FEMA base, Jensen is transported to the Hengsha Islands to investigate the address that he was given. And sure enough, the address was correct, though what Barrett did not tell Jensen was that the entire city is heavily under guard from bell tower operatives, now acting as the main police force for the city. After slipping into the apartment building unnoticed, Jensen learns that the person who was controlling the hacker back in the US was a man called Ari Van Bruggen, also being known by his hacker name, Windmill. However, Windmill had gone into hiding, and he was able to do this thanks to the endeavours of one man, the local head of the Harvester Triad and crime lord, Tong Si-hong. Tong, a man of great measure and wealth, but not someone you'd want to mess with. Commanding a huge amount of power at his fingertips, Tong has come to dominate the criminal underworld of the Hengsha region and its black market, specialising in stolen and hijacked augmentations. Knowing that Tong owns a nightclub in the city called The Hive, Jensen makes his way there. Hoping to meet with Tong himself, Jensen is confronted by a disfigured yet confident member of the club's staff, who is immediately interested by what Jensen has to say. He directs Jensen down to Tong's office in the basement, where Jensen realises that the man he was talking to was in fact Tong himself. After Tong gives him the go-ahead to track down Windmill, Jensen locates the hacker in an apartment block. It is here that Jensen discovers that it wasn't FEMA that had ordered him to take part in the Milwaukee attack, but in fact it was Zhao Yunru who had given him his orders. But since the operation had occurred, Zhao had put a bounty on Windmill's head, and now he was being hunted down by bell tower operatives. Fortunately for both of them, Windmill had left a recording of Zhao inside the Taiyang Medical Headquarters there in Hengsha that Jensen might find useful. It is at this point that Bell Tower forces catch up with Windmill, and the two are forced to go their separate ways. Escaping the scene, Jensen heads towards the Tai Yong Medical Headquarters, successfully managing to slip past its security measures and getting his hands on the recording. On this recording, Zhao can be seen arguing with Jaron Namir, the head of the Tyrants, but it is during this conversation that Zhao reveals that the neural implants within the bodies of the scientists who were kidnapped from Sarif Industries headquarters several months ago have been disabled, meaning that they could still be alive, along with Megan Reed, who up until this point was presumed dead. She also reveals that there was another who had assisted the conspirators in allowing the attack to occur, Eliza Cassan. Somehow, the main news anchor of Picus TV was involved, and this does not make sense to Jensen one bit. After pressing further into the facility, Jensen finally comes face to face with the woman herself, Zhao Yunru. In an instant of terror, Zhao pleads with Jensen, claiming that she was forced to carry out these events due to the fact that powerful people were making her do it. As Jensen lowers his guard, Zhao escapes, revealing that she had actually carried out her actions by choice before making her exit, and soon after, Jensen makes his own. With the possibility of Megan Reed and the other scientists still being alive, Adam Jensen follows the only lead he has now, that being Eliza Cassan of Picus TV. Reaching the Montreal branch of the media network, Jensen is shocked to find the entire communications network building completely deserted. It becomes apparent that a full-scale evacuation had previously occurred, but that the staff members were informed that it was a training drill. Sensing a trap, Jensen proceeds slowly until he reaches Cassan's own office. Finding Eliza as the only other person in the building, Jensen begins to demand answers from her, but her answers are not exactly the ones that Jensen was hoping for. Discovering that what he was actually talking to was just a holographic version of the news anchor, Jensen tries to find Cassan's real location within the building, which by this point had become infested with Special Ops forces. Reaching a sub-basement level, Jensen finally locates Eliza Cassan, but she is not exactly what Jensen was expecting. Expecting to find a woman, Adam Jensen is shocked to discover that Eliza Cassan is actually an artificial intelligence unit, designed to influence public opinion and limit how much information the general public have access to. In true Illuminati fashion, the fact that Picus was being manipulated by the Illuminati, Eliza Cassan was just another tool for control. But before anything else could be said, Yelena Fedorova, another member of the Tyrants, enters the room and once more, Jensen is forced into a fight. After defeating the mercenary, Eliza Cassan informs Jensen that, although she was designed as a monitoring system, she had gained self-awareness and has evaluated her actions thus far. Believing that her participation in the Sarif attack was not justified, Eliza agrees to share what information she can with him in order to save the remaining Sarif scientists. Jensen learns that the man who had disabled the scientists' implants was actually Isaiah Sandoval, the right-hand man to Humanity Front's own Bill Taggart, and brother to the man who had attacked Sarif Industries several days earlier, Zeke Sanders. Flying back to Detroit, where Taggart prepares to deliver an anti-augmentation speech to the nation, Jensen finds that the rioting in the city has developed fully, and now there are armed battles in the street between the local police force and the protesters. But before he can continue with his mission, he is called to his apartment by David Sarif. It is here that Sarif reveals to Jensen the presence of the Illuminati, that everything that has happened so far has all been according to their designs for the world. Despite being skeptical of the whole thing, Jensen takes what Sarif has to say on board and continues with his mission. Meanwhile, as a means of both putting his point across and by calming the rioters, Bill Taggart prepares his speech. Jensen crashes the conference and demands to know where Sandoval is. Claiming that he knew nothing of the sort, Taggart attempts to directly challenge Jensen in a public debate, which Jensen is able to win. Seeing that this is a grave matter indeed, Taggart gives Jensen the address to Sandoval's apartment. Finding it filled with Purity First members, Jensen tracks down Sandoval to an underground hideout. It is here that Sandoval atones for his actions, informing Jensen that the scientist's implant frequency was never shut off, but rather switched to a lower frequency channel that no one would think of looking for. As Pritchard tracks down one of the signals back to Hengsha, Jensen is flown back out to the Chinese islands and follows the signal to a Harvester Triad stronghold. During his time back in Hengsha, Adam Jensen starts to experience problems with his neural implants, causing minor cognitive disorientations, headaches, dizziness, as well as his HUD being temporarily disabled. Finding out that he is not the only one experiencing this issue, Jensen is confronted with the choice of visiting a limb clinic to get the problem fixed by receiving a free upgrade chip that would resolve the problem, or by leaving it in order to press on with the mission, and this decision would most certainly affect him in the near future. After breaking into the Harvester stronghold, Jensen locates the scientist's signal, but unfortunately, the signal is located in the arm of the man who now wears it, and instead of that person being the scientist in question, the man Jensen is led to turns out to be Tong Si-hong. Knowing that his new augmented arm could well get him into a lot of trouble, Tong decides that he is willing to help Jensen out again, but only on the condition that he rescues his son first from Baotower forces. Complying with his request, Jensen is able to locate and liberate Tong's son, a rather brash and overconfident young man called Tracer Tong, yet another figure who will end up playing a big part in decades to come. With his side of the bargain upheld, it is Tong's turn. He directs Jensen to a shipping facility that would take him to wherever he needs to go. As a diversion for this infiltration, Tong gives Jensen a bomb which Tong evidently fails to have wired properly, giving Jensen only a few seconds to escape the bomb's blast. Succeeding in escaping and hiding in a hibernation pod, Jensen is shipped away by boat to an unknown destination in the hope of being unloaded at the scientist's location. Waking up from his hibernation, Adam Jensen is surprised to find where he's been brought to. Instead of locating the missing scientists, Jensen finds himself on board a ship en route to the Rifleman Bank Station, a Belltower-owned black site oil rig, as a prisoner suspected of political espionage. After being tortured by the senior officer, Natanya Keitner, Jensen is suddenly released from his shackles and begins to explore the facility. Being guided by an unknown contact via his radio, Jensen manages to infiltrate the facility and meets up with a different contact, who turns out to be Keitner herself, acting as a double agent for Interpol. It is revealed that some sort of secret yet unethical experimentations are being carried out by the facility's scientists, which is being led by the site's commander, Peter Burke. After locating one of the said scientists, Tiffany Kavanagh, the Doctor informs Jensen of a project that is being developed that will allow humans to be assimilated into a supercomputer, which in turn will allow the user unprecedented power and control over the media and other electrical devices, and which will give the computer's AI an understanding of human needs and desires on a basic level, a project that would become known as the Hyron Project. As Jensen prepares to escort Tiffany out of the facility, Commander Burke gets wind of what is transpiring and engages in a firefight with Keitner, mortally wounding her, and releases poisonous gas into different areas of the facility, which presents Jensen with a choice of either saving the lives of the other abducted test subjects, or saving Tiffany Kavanagh, the one person who would be able to testify against Belltower's operations at the Rifleman Bank Station. Finding the gas dispenser mechanism and destroying it, Jensen is able to save both parties and attempts to go after Burke. It is unclear as to what happens to Commander Burke, but either way, it is clear that Jensen was able to get round that problem. After being informed from his mysterious contact that another ship is inbound that will take him to Megan Reed's location, Jensen finally learns that the mysterious contact was in fact Garvin Quinn, a friend of Keitner who had already helped Jensen several times during his infiltration of the facility, and who is in league with the leader of the Juggernaut Collective, Janus. With business concluded, Jensen enters a new hibernation pod, which thus sends him towards his goal and Megan Reed. Once more on the path towards the truth, Jensen now finds himself at the Omega Ranch, another black site facility in Singapore. After infiltrating the facility, Jensen manages to locate 3 of the missing Sarif scientists. He learns that the Illuminati are developing the biochip that is being distributed by Lim as a means of fixing the glitches in his neural implants that many other augmented people were experiencing. But in fact, this biochip will allow the Illuminati to maintain control over the augmented human population should they try to overthrow them or become uncontrollable. This would thus replace the need for the tyrants. He also learns that Megan Reed is still alive and begins to put a prison break plan into motion. By orchestrating a clever plan, Jensen is able to infiltrate the most secure section of the base. But before he is reunited with Dr. Reed, Jensen comes once again across Zhao Yunru. Seizing the opportunity while he can, Adam presents the evidence that he has gained about the Illuminati to the overzealous and overconfident CEO. And since Jensen has shown his hand, it is now Zhao's turn to show hers. Pulling out an electronic device, Zhao attempts to deactivate Jensen's augmentations through the upgraded biochip that Jensen could have had implanted back in Hengsha. As Zhao shows her hand, Jaron Namir, the leader of the Tyrants, and the man who had led the attack on Sarif Industries, confronts Jensen as Zhao makes her escape, and after an intense battle, Jensen walks away victorious. It is here that he once again comes face to face with Dr. Megan Reed, his once upon a time love interest. But the reunion is not a pleasant one. The work that Reed had carried out for the Omega Ranch had been contributing to the conspiracy side of the tale, and it only starts here. In a shocking turn of events, Megan reveals to Jensen two details. The first is her groundbreaking discovery, the scientific breakthrough that will allow the successful bond between flesh and machine without the need for neuropozyne. All that is required is a particular strand of DNA that is receptive to this bond, and Megan Reed had found it in Adam Jensen himself. All this time, and Jensen didn't realise that he was in fact the key to humanity's next step in human evolution. The second detail being that whilst the Omega Ranch facility was indeed under the direction of the Illuminati, it is actually owned by Hugh Darrow, the creator of the augmentation technology. And finally, Jensen sees that Hugh and the Illuminati are working together. As this conversation unfolds, the two of them watch Darrow on a nearby television as he delivers his speech at the newly opened Panchaea installation, a giant geoengineering facility located in the Arctic Ocean, primarily for the reversal of global warming. But it is during this speech that Darrow unleashes hell. By activating a special signal, Darrow transforms every person who had opted to have the upgraded implant chip installed to become mindless animals, destroying and killing everything in sight, thus using the biochip as a kill switch. Knowing that something must be done to stop this, Adam Jensen travels to Panchaea itself in order to confront Darrow. After coming face to face with the godfather of augmentation technology himself, the two enter into a heated debate. It would appear that whilst Darrow had agreed to work with the Illuminati to begin with, he eventually became so opposed to the development of the biochip that he decided the only way humanity could be free from this form of control is to eliminate human augmentation technology entirely. He used the kill switch as a means of showing the world what perverted methods could be employed using this technology, in the hope that society would see the Illuminati's work and systematically ban all forms of mechanical augmentations. Jensen explains to him that whilst Darrow may have initially created this technology so that the weak and helpless could function physically as a normal person again, Hugh has allowed augmentation technology to be turned into yet another tool for the powerful to control the masses. But as Jensen delves deeper into the scientist's mind, he realises that Darrow has become envious of those who are augmented and has come to despise his own creation due to the fact that Darrow is one of the few people who cannot get augmented due to his tissues not being a compatible match for augmentation surgery. Realising that what he has actually entered into is a personal war between himself and his creation, Darrow agrees to help Jensen turn off the signal and end the incident. As Jensen descends into the core of the facility to shut down the signal, he comes across both William Taggart and David Sarif individually, being held under siege from the now mindless Panchaea crew. Both sides attempt to persuade Jensen to put out a message to the world, telling them the supposed truth about the incident, though in reality, both sides want to bend the media to their way of thinking. William Taggart, now openly admitting that he has been a member of the Illuminati all this time, tries to convince Jensen to put out a message blaming the incident on a tainted batch of neuropozyne, resulting in the establishment of UN regulations that will help the Illuminati take control of human augmentation development. David Sarif, on the other hand, tries to convince Jensen to blame the Humanity Front for this incident, meaning that anti-augmentation supporters would be ignored in international law, allowing the free development of human augmentation technology worldwide. Now pushing further into the facility, Jensen discovers the Hyron Project, the same technology he had previously come across whilst at the Rifleman Bank Station. Coming face to face with Zhao Yunru for the last time, Zhao explains that the Hyron Project, a large bioelectrical megacomputer, has been one of the Illuminati's secret weapons that will allow for greater monitoring and control over all forms of media and electronic devices. Zhao attempts to use the Hyron's computer to bend the media to the Illuminati's favour, taking advantage of the situation to put the Illuminati in a better position. Realising the dangers that this supercomputer poses to humanity, as well as the fact that the computer requires heavily augmented slaves to become a physical part of its hardware, Jensen destroys the project along with Zhao in the process, who eventually loses control of the Hyron's AI. And it is here, after the Illuminati's plans backfired, and with the kill switch signal causing the violent behaviour deactivated, Jensen is confronted with one final decision. After entering the broadcast centre of the facility, Eliza Cassan contacts Adam and presents him with a number of options that will bring the entire episode to a close. The first option Jensen could take is to broadcast the confessions of Hugh Darrow about what he had done with regards to the signal, the kill switch, and the Illuminati, which would grant Hugh his wishes in that the technology would become permanently banned. He could take David Sarif's advice and put the blame on Humanity Front, which would allow the technology to be developed further. He could take William Taggart's advice and put the blame on anti-augmentation drugs such as neuropozyne, which would allow the technology to continue to exist, but would mean that tougher restrictions and legislations would have to be put in place. And finally, Adam could decide to initiate the self-destruct function and destroy the entire facility, killing all of the key players inside along with himself. But humanity would be left to make up its own mind about what happened at Panchaea that day. And after being informed about all of these options, Jensen makes his choice. It is unclear which of these choices Jensen took. However, judging from the events that would eventually take place in the decades that follow, it is fair to say that the most likely choice Adam Jensen took was to destroy the entire facility. But regardless of what has happened, the tale of Adam Jensen ends here. A human revolution has occurred, and humanity is left feeling the after effect of a conspiracy that will most likely never be fully revealed to the general public. But there are some out there that know of what has transpired. As the turbulent events the world has witnessed subside, a meeting is held in secret. Still largely in power as before, several key members of the Illuminati meet to discuss their next move. Among them are Morgan Everett, CEO of Picus TV Montreal, and Dr. Megan Reed, who had been invited along to help with the development of the next step in the evolution of augmentation technology, as well as other projects. The Illuminati is about to jump forward through history and hold the world in the palm of their hands. But their scientific research and development would be spearheaded by the very same person who had arranged the meeting and indeed caused most of the events as of late. The CEO of the rising Page Industries, Bob Page, is planning something big for the world. But what that is, and the tale of how he shapes the world, we'll have to wait until next time. Join us next time on True Review, where we'll be looking several decades into the future, as the world becomes gripped by the invisible hand. Where the secret society will mould the world in their favour and thrust humanity into a new phase of scientific breakthroughs. But as their rise to power becomes prevalent, another sub-faction is waiting in the shadows for the right time to strike and seize power. All of this next time in Episode 3, The Invisible Hand.